which where are you in your own journey about investing? Yeah. Of course, Wen. So if you can pop it into the chat, where are you? Oh, yes. That will really help us understand what stages of the journey we're all in. And I think what we'll do is we will start by playing a video. Okay. Hi, Song. Good to have you.
Hey, hi, Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Wen.
So, are you familiar with the people here? Pei, Wen. You've not met Ted.
No, not at all, actually.
Yeah.
No, Mason.
So Ted, Song was someone I went to when we needed to do that site visit of Casa.
Yes.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. He's very familiar with the spices industry.
That's right, Song. I've read your emails. Thank you for all your support. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah,
almost
nice
in person.
Nice to meet you. Glad for this opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just play a very short video. This one. Sorry. Am I screen sharing?
Yes.
Yeah. Although I need to, let me do this again.
Well, Alex is getting the video ready. Please type into the chat and let us know where you stand in impact investing. Interested, active, very active? Let us know, please.
Yeah, there you go. Great, thanks. And so that was just a very quick video of the work that Beneficial Returns does. And now I'm hoping just to elaborate a little bit on a couple of the photos that you've seen in particular. Okay, so we saw this photo earlier of this farmer couple, and we thought of just giving actually I don't need this. Yeah, so they are based in Chiang Rai in Dongfa Sak village, and these are people that work with a company that we've lent to, and they, between themselves, they farm on 16 acres. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've been with this project since 2010. And what the transition that they went through was they were conventional chemical farmers before and working with chemical fertilizers and pesticides. And since they've joined this organic farming project, they have now purchased organic inputs from the company that we lent to, and which are less expensive and actually getting paid more. So their input cost has gone down and their produce is now worth more. And I wanted to showcase also entrepreneurs that we invest in. And this is one of them. Dirk is a Dutch national, and he works for this company called Forestwise, and which helps indigenous communities in Borneo, processing the forest produce, for example, ilipi nuts that they process into ilipi butter, and that is a substitute for something like shea butter, and that is used in a lot of cosmetics industry. And what that does is it actually sustains the livelihoods of these communities so that they do not then have to cede their land to yet another conglomerate to turn into a single culture, monoculture farm that uses chemical agriculture. And that prevents deforestation as well. And I mean, something that we try to make the case a lot to people, especially in Singapore, is this visual depiction of just that gap between GDP per capita in this island country compared to the GDP per capita of countries around us. And I think the point that we really want to try and hammer home here is that the GDP per capita, and for communities especially that are disconnected, the likes of Philippines, the likes of Indonesia and Thailand, they found themselves in these vulnerable situations without actually having had anything to do with it, right? And my colleague Coco often says, like, opportunities are very unequal in that sense. And this is one chance. And I think what we try to do, beneficial returns work, is really be that isthmus that connects those with the capacity for action with those who are exposed to all kinds of vulnerability. So let me stop share my screen real quick. But we really want to try and understand where you guys are coming from. And one thing in particular that we'll like to understand is, what are the challenges that you face in trying to do more? Because I think the plight of humanity is that we hear an inspiring idea, but it doesn't get translated into action. We are inspired, but nothing really changes, right? So we're really trying to understand from you guys here, especially those who have an intent to do more in this sector, what are some major impediments that stop us from trying to do more?
And Alex, I'd like to mention this is billed as a discussion, and that's not just a discussion between you and me, but I think there are few enough people attending this Zoom meeting that we encourage you. You can certainly use the chat, but if you're comfortable, please open up your microphone and speak with us as well, because I do hope that it ultimately is a discussion.
Great point. So some challenges that we thought are quite systemic are things like around risk. You know, it is quite risky. People, I think, have this perception that maybe it's too risky. Can anybody resonate with that?
let me mention another one. It requires too much money. That that there aren't opportunities to invest small amounts of capital.
Right. Yeah.
That's an obstacle for many people.
Right. How about the lack of expertise with due diligence?
How about the lack of expertise with legal documentation?
Right.
Let me jump in here. This is Don Hodges. I'm in Cambodia with Bakavilla. I know
Don.
Alex and Ted. Thanks.
Yes, hi, Don.
The first 2 points you made are very, very relevant. Too risky. It shouldn't be too risky, but it often is. But there's often a significant lack of capital. We here at Bakavilla are just, we kind of need to get going from the start again. And that just, it involves so much capital and nobody is willing to lend that to you. Certainly not the banks in Cambodia. Best laid plans just keep falling apart. We just recently came across a fabulous idea to move from ringgit to black pepper. We had everything all lined up. We had 100 tons available for sale. It was just perfect. And then I discovered today that that 100 tons of black pepper has been sold.
So sorry to hear that news.
We're just back to
Don runs a social enterprise that harvests and processes moringa, incredibly nutritious, very fast growing plant that grows throughout the tropics. And so I think he's expressing his frustration, I think, is one that we often hear from social entrepreneurs. And, it's ironic, we hear from the social entrepreneurs, they can't find the money, and we hear from the impact investors that they can't find the opportunities. And I think they're both wrong in some ways, but there are a lot of systemic things. Alex and I have already mentioned a few of them. I think there are many others that stand in the way of impact investing happening. In addition to the ones that we mentioned, I'll simply add cross-border. You have currency issues, you have the legal documentation issues I mentioned before. A lot of people don't know how to structure an investment, right? These are all reasonable obstacles that people face, but there is something fundamentally wrong, that there's such incredible interest in impact investing and not a lot of it actually transpiring. And I think that is something that we desperately need to resolve right away. And I'm not referring to the reports that you may have read about how there are trillions of dollars in impact investing. I'm talking about what I call deep impact investing, which I define as moving money to improve society in a way that wouldn't otherwise happen. So we're not talking about investing in publicly traded stocks. We're not talking about investing in a wind farm in Scandinavia. We're talking about grassroots, boots on the ground, deep impact investing.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to distinguish, right? Because this idea that something happens because of you choosing to deploy your capital this way is a powerful one, right? As compared to something that would happen anyway, and something that has been branded under the ESG umbrella. But these are grassroots and deep-rooted impact investments that we're talking about. So that's nice that we clarified that. I thought it may be helpful to actually call on Pei, who started out being interested, started out being inspired, but actually moved on to her first investment and actually did it through one of the loans that we made. So maybe she can relate some of her journey and some of her experience and what finally motivated her to take that action. Hey?
Sure. I think my journey with impact investment started with that rumbling quite some years ago where, I'm not the richest person in the world, but I have more than I need. And how do I manage that well for the sake of others. You know, and I cannot consume all this for myself, and I shouldn't. Like it was almost this moral wrestling, and I began a journey of just thinking about, but how do you do it? Because it's not like I had a finance background and I knew how to research things and start something up on my own. So I think in the last couple of years, I, you know, came upon TBN Asia and then this idea of impact investment. But it was just a learning journey of and then hitting all the things that Alex talked about, like and Ted, the amount of paperwork, the due diligence to really understand and go deep with the companies, and I didn't have time to do all that, but I really wanted to put my money where it mattered, where it aligned with my own value system. So I think one of the things that I appreciated about working with Ted and Alex is that they are available. They're not just some faraway fund manager who, you know, maybe it's a couple of emails here and there, but they were willing to answer questions that I had. I could actually meet with, you know, the people who are managing these funds, and I think, and they even bring along their investees so that you get to meet the investees. And I think they have this culture of when the borders open someday, where we can actually go and see the work, where our money is being put to, and it just makes it very real. And so I think I've always wanted to see more of that in, you know, where it's not just a single, it's a single bottom line and yay, more money, making more, you know. I just really wrestled with that. And I think beneficial returns and just journeying with these guys helped me to see a model of, that you can go down to the grassroots and it can be sustainable. There is risk, like Don was saying, but I think with relationships and working together and partnerships and like-minded vision, investors and investees and the communities around, you know, the just surrounding partnerships can really make this happen, and it can succeed. And so I think, just beginning to understand impact investing with beneficial returns was really helpful. And I think another thing that really helped is if you're not somebody who has either the risk appetite or the actual assets of hundreds of thousands to put in to an investment, participating in a loan with beneficial returns allows you to just put your toe in at a level that is comfortable, and it might stretch you, some more than others, depending on how much you want to invest, but I think it makes it doable. And like I think the reports that they give you, you know, when they give you credit assessments on the companies they're looking at, you know that you couldn't have generated that yourself, even if you put in 100 hours, you know. And so it's just, they relieve the burdens, you know, the pain points of I want to do good, but I'm maybe not as skilled, or I just don't have that time, but I want to work with people who share these values. So yeah, I did my first, they call it a loan participation. And this great company out in Thailand doing organic farming. And I got to speak with those investees. And it was just great. I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when the borders open so we can head up there to see how the work is going.
And you've received a check or two, I believe, as well, right, Pei?
Oh, yes. I suppose.
Yeah, let's not forget that. They're starting to pay back.
Yes,
Thank you.
There have been no
Thank you
issues
so
with
much.
loan repayment.
Right. Thank you so much. And, you know, Pei originally participated in our workshop, and we reimbursed her tuition when she elected to participate in one of our loans. But let me be very clear about something that she said. The work that we're inviting you to do alongside us is not easy. You know, this is the antithesis of getting rich quickly, because neither will happen. You won't get rich doing this work, and it won't happen quickly either. You know, this is it. You know, if you want to keep on doing the easy thing, we will keep on having the status quo. And so I've devoted my life to impact investing. because I believe deeply that finance and money has a role to play, and we all have a responsibility to bring along the rest of the planet so that they can, in a dignified way, lead lives to their full potential. But this is not a way to make a quick buck. And Pei participated in our workshop, which is demanding of its attendees. And then she
Yes.
put her money where her mouth is. And I thank her for that. Every year, more and more people are doing what Pei is doing, but it is still just a tiny sliver of society. And I think it begins with the statement that Pei made, which she acknowledged that she has enough. And I think one of the biggest obstacles people have to impact investing is, one, the effort involved. And we try to reduce that effort, but we don't eliminate it. It's much easier to keep your money in the bank, keep your money in the stock market, keep your money wherever it is. And then the other thing is, I believe as an impact investor, it's important to come into this with humility and with recognition that this is not your opportunity to try to maximize your wealth even more. This is an opportunity to try to maximize impact and to share some of what you have. And if you can bring that charitable heart to this work, it can be deeply rewarding. It can meet those expectations, but this is not a way to make a quick buck.
Thanks, Ted. Maybe at this point, I can invite some questions from our attendees. Anything that Pei has addressed or Ted has spoken about. Hi, Wayne. I didn't acknowledge you earlier. That you may have in terms of, and then we can get a little bit more into the BR approach, and not as a marketing tool per se, but just in how it addresses some of these common concerns that interested impact investors have that we cited earlier. But if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself and then you can just ask it. If not, Ted, I would actually invite you to.
Hey, Alex, I don't
Yeah,
mind chiming in a little bit here just
Please.
to get a discussion going.
Please.
I appreciate the comments that have been made, Ted, that is not a way to get rich quick. And you said it's not even a way to get rich.
That's right.
But therein lies the dilemma, perhaps, and that would be, if we want to get a critical mass of people who are more interested to do this and participating, what would you think would be then the important criteria, the motivating kinds of factors and values that would put someone on board, something like that, because when you use the word investing, there is an expectation of returns, right? And
yes,
and so
absolutely.
definitely your organization name, Beneficial Returns, is very aptly chosen. But perhaps we could maybe, for folks who are kind of new into this, to be able to give some sort of color, balance, and insights into some of those tensions that generally surround impact investing.
That's an excellent topic for us to discuss. And from my mind, there's no dilemma. For those investors seeking a market return, we offer you the market, the world we have today. That's where you get the market return. And so if you're satisfied with the world as it is today, I encourage you can leave the meeting early and have more free time and keep your money invested in the market. I think that if we want to really make a big change in the world, that we have to adjust our expectations. And I define a successful investment as one that meets your expectations, both the financial expectations and the impact expectations. We choose to play in an area where we're serving the very poor, and consequently, we offer our borrowers a very modest interest rate and consequently our investors themselves earn a very modest interest rate. But there are opportunities across the spectrum, starting with negative 100%, which I presume everyone on this call has made a negative 100% investment willingly, by choice. It's called a gift. If you've made a gift or a grant, you have made a negative 100% investment. And so I encourage people, when they think about impact investing, not simply to compare an investment to what they may earn in a mutual fund, but to think about the gifts that they've made in their life, where they are immediately earn a negative 100% return. And I think that when you reframe deep impact investing that way, the returns that we offer, which are still very modest, suddenly appear much more attractive. And again, I think the first step is to acknowledge that we've all been blessed with great financial security, and that with that comes the responsibility to share that more widely.
So maybe let's put some numbers. And Ted, I was wondering whether, in response to what Song has talked about and what Pei talked about, whether you can articulate the BR approach and specifically what you're inviting interested people to come alongside with.
Sure.
You know, and I think we've got this product called loan participation. I've actually got a short slide for it, so it will.
Why don't we start with the discussion of the workshop, if you don't mind?
Sure.
So that's not a requirement, but we always encourage people to participate in our workshop, and we were very intentional about calling it a workshop because you will be working if you join this. And Melvin is on this call, and Pei is on this call as well, and I think they would both confirm that it does involve work. And so our workshops last over there's 6 sessions. Each session is an hour and a half or 2 hours long. And we use the case study methodology. And so over the course of 6 weeks, you will dig deeply into 3 social enterprises, 3 impact investing opportunities. And you will see, we will share with you my 12 years of experience in impact investing, how we approach transactions, how we evaluate transactions, how we structure investments, all of the mistakes that we've made. Well, many of them. It's only 6 sessions, so we can't share all of the mistakes, but we share all of the mistakes. And I think our goal is to demystify impact investing so that at the end of the program, you are prepared to make your first impact investment. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do offer our workshop participants the opportunity to have their tuition refunded if they choose to participate in one of our loans. And now maybe, Alex, you can share a little detail about how that works.
Sure, yeah. I think with this workshop, though, it is akin to a doctor inviting an interested party into the operating theater, right? Come into the OT, see how this is actually done, what we look at, what are some of the complications that may come through. And I mean, something that's been lost, I think, over the ages is the whole idea of apprenticeship has been replaced by internship. And apprenticeship, where you work next to like a craftsman, where you work next to somebody with a deep domain expertise, is hopefully what we're trying to replicate here. So I will share how we try to move you to action through this idea of loan participation. So we talked about returns, and it is nothing that's going to make you rich. And specifically, it is 3.5% that you earn in quarterly payments. And so you'll get if it's a 3-year loan, if it's a 4-year loan, you would have amortizing payments every quarter, principal and interest, to the extent that the borrower continues to repay, and it will be credited back to you. And for larger amounts exceeding 200 grand, we pay 4.5%. And So for that, you get an access to all the credit memos and all the analysis and the impact analysis that the team has done. And this is what Pei was talking about. So when I was just an outsider, I think it really, the rigor of that assessment really struck me. And I could see that this is not just something that you do with the heart, but something that where you have really actively applied the head into as well. And direct calls to the entrepreneur just to understand what's happening on the ground, so that investors are directly connected with the entrepreneurs and understanding their triumphs as well as their challenges. And this whole thing around legal. And here I would say that one of the challenges is the riskiness of these investments, right? And I think the approach here in addressing this specific segment is that often because we're using debt, and not only are we using debt, we're using collateralized debt as far as possible. And these are collateralized by machinery and equipment over and above usually that loan that we extend to the borrowers. And that is that purchase, that loan should directly improve the business cash flows of the borrower, in that it either causes them to save on their production costs or allows them to sell more. So some of that benefit from either savings or increasing revenues gets repaid as we make these loans. And these loans are documented by a legal counsel. So you will have access to all of that administration and all of that as well. And I think this idea of actually being face-to-face with the communities where these businesses are actually being operated, to come face-to-face with the impact that is generated is, I cannot say more about it. It is just so important in fueling our compassionate bank. So this is something that we hope to do as soon as the border restrictions are lifted.
And Alex, just to share, so we're very clear, when you participate in a loan, legally you are buying a percentage of a loan that we're making. And so legally you own that percentage of the equipment as collateral, and legally you own that percentage of the payments that come back. And so we forward those payments to our participants quarterly. It's a wonderful way that you can have a direct impact investment in a country that you care about, in an industry that you care about, or serving beneficiaries that you care about, without having to find the borrower, negotiate the term sheet, underwrite the loan, hire attorneys, bill and collect, monitor and report. We do all of those things for you, and you wind up joining beneficial returns in ownership in a particular loan. I'm pleased to say that since we started this, all of our participants have received all of their payments on a timely basis. We don't promise that forever, but we try to be very prudent with the capital that we lend. We work with social enterprises that have a bare minimum of 3 years of operating history, most of them much longer. They have revenue of $1 million or more, and they all are first and foremost focused on poverty reduction in the markets where they operate.
Yeah, so these are not for, we're not in a position to serve the earliest of the early startups, those that certainly are pre-revenue, or those who have still, in spite of how important the work is, very modest revenues. So for that, probably need to apologize. These are slightly more mature, you would call them teenagers, social entrepreneurs and social enterprises. We've got a question from Andreas, and sounds like she's a social entrepreneur.
Yeah, let me answer her question. Will we invest in women beneficiaries? Of course we will. We have, and of course we will continue to do it. Our borrowers pay us between 6 and 12% interest to borrow money from us. And How do we evaluate social enterprises? We do all the work that a bank would do in evaluating a prospective borrower, but we also look very deeply into the impact. In fact, that's our very first question, is the impact. We don't much care how strong your business is if you can't demonstrate that you're having deep impact on the ground, ideally not just serving poor people, but also preserving or improving the environment as well. I think the two examples that Alex gave, although we have many others, are great examples of enterprises that are reducing poverty, but also preserving and in both cases, improving the environment.
And so if there are social entrepreneurs amongst us, and I know that there are Don, Andreas, one just corrected me. Andreas is a masculine male, so I'm really sorry. And you feel like there is a case to be made for BR to be making loans to you, please get in touch.
Now, I'm going to assume from the last name that Andreas is in Indonesia, but anywhere in Southeast Asia, we would love to speak with you. So please reach out to us afterwards. We're always on the hunt for new enterprises to finance.
So speaking of which, right, Southeast Asia, what's an American doing impact investing in Southeast Asia?
Alex, well, there's a polite way to answer that question, and there's a more honest way. So I'll start with the polite way. The polite way is there is tremendous opportunity and tremendous need in Southeast Asia. Hundreds of millions of very poor people, and then many, many times more people that have taken a step up the ladder, but either in the last year have taken a step back or are always at risk of taking a step back into serious poverty. And then I don't believe there's anywhere on the planet that has greater threats to the natural environment than Southeast Asia does. So the polite answer to your question is that's where the biggest opportunity is and the biggest need is. I think the more honest answer, and I'll be the ugly American for saying this, it's because you guys aren't doing it. I mean, look, there's no shortage of money in Southeast Asia. There's no shortage of intelligence. There's no, as I mentioned earlier, the opportunities are there, but I don't see folks stepping up to the plate and making the loans that we desperately need. And we have chosen to operate in this range of lending $50,000 to $500,000 to social enterprises that are 3 years old or older, because there's so many gaps in this field, but this is one of the most nefarious ones that I've seen. We have these very promising social enterprises. They get some support sometimes from organizations like TBN. They get started, they get a little traction, and they get stuck. And then we're always then looking for the next new idea. Whereas really what I think we need to do is to find the good ones and support them through their growth, which is what we try to do. We don't finance brand new initiatives. We're making loans so existing social enterprises can get more equipment and do what they're already doing. And I think it fills a very big void. And I would love to step back from Southeast Asia and turn it all over to you folks. But until that day happens, we are committed to making loans in the region. We also work in Latin America, so I don't want to suggest that Southeast Asia is alone in this regard. In Latin America is filled with very wealthy people that have the capacity to make these investments as well. But I think sometimes it does take someone from far away to be able to see through the shadows and see the opportunities. And so I work with Alex and Coco, both who are on this call, both based in Asia, but there's a great need to have more local supporters, not just with your money, but also with your connections to help these social enterprises grow.
Thanks. I'm just going to make a confession here. My I love it when we're able to connect the rich and those with a capacity for action with the vulnerable. I love this work. I love it when conversations in richer households revolve around purpose and what they can do for those who have no voice and for those who have no ability to lift themselves out of their predicament. And that fuels a lot of the work that we do. But yet we have often seen that action is slow in coming and people remain interested, but that's not translated to action. So what we've done, and I'll just invite Wen very shortly to talk about her experience, is introspect and then see what we can do differently to maybe lower the bar and appreciate some of these difficulties that stand in the way of someone becoming an impact investor or beginning their journey in impact investing, and then really inviting them on this journey. And that's how the workshop was birthed. I mean, this is something that, to Ted's point, combines actual working, hence a workshop, education, with shortly thereafter application. So inviting you to participate in a loan and then getting in touch with these communities and entrepreneurs. So with that, maybe I'll just invite Wen to relate a bit about her experience going through.
Right, thank you. So I did the course earlier this year, and for me, it was just kind of a personal journey just to learn more. I think I always had a heart for helping, volunteer at charities and all that, and getting into the impact investment world, there's a lot of study that's needed, a lot of articles, understanding a lot of even jargon sometimes. And what I liked about this course was that it helped me like step by step go through it. I think a big takeaway for me was actually doing my own personal theory of change, which I hadn't really sat down to do. And for those who will go for the course, you'll learn about that as well. But it's really just about what kind of resources do you have? And it's not just money in terms of, and caveat as well, I'm not, I don't have a lot of wealth and everything, but enough. And so it's not just the money side, but it's like, okay, what do I have expertise in? What are my other resources? And then kind of mapping it out to go, okay, this is kind of the change that I would love to see and how I could contribute towards that. So I think it helped me just go through a personal journey of learning, being with like-minded people, looking at case studies and just expanding my knowledge. And it gave me the confidence to then be able to do my first impact investment. And so then I kind of went into it knowing that, okay, this is something I can do. And I felt a little bit more comfortable. So, I mean, just to be open, I didn't actually invest with beneficial returns. I did it on my own and actually into a mental health startup. And one of the decisions was that I really felt I could contribute just apart from my capital, just in front of putting the money in. I had people in my networks and just other things I could bring on. So I think that even we're talking impact investment, I think when we think about investment, we always just think financial, but actually the entrepreneurs on the ground, the businesses actually need more than that. And I would be more of what I would say an active investor, that if I would put my money into something, I would follow it on to provide help. And so I guess if I wanted to do agriculture and other things, I wouldn't have the expertise. So it was more of that, what do I have? How can I bring it in? And then doing that. So I think the course really helped me with that. And definitely then I think also understanding that you need to partner up. So there's so many issues that we want to, get involved in. I personally grew up in a very kind of poor family in Malaysia, and I want to be able to one day be able to do something in Malaysia, but I guess it's the timing and then finding the right partners on the ground or working with the right people and not always having to feel like I need to do it by myself as well. But even where philanthropy comes into it, I actually learned that from the course, at which parts of a startup or a scaling up where philanthropy could work. So I guess it gave me a really broader way of just thinking through things and yeah, I would encourage anyone who wanted to do the course. It gives you the discipline. I think we all have good intentions to read, to watch lots of videos and learn ourselves, but we all need to be kept accountable. And I felt that, again, I was really one of the bad students. So I would literally be the night before or the previous night texting Pay going, I haven't done my work, and I'm like crash learning. So there are bad students like me as well. But it at least forced me to do something I've always had a heart for and to do. So yeah, anyway, that was my experience.
That's great. Thanks, Wen. Yeah, I saw earlier on in the chat, people like Edward, people like Kosh and Rowena interested, and I'm guessing you'd like to do something and actually deploy some capital to these causes that you that move you. So I'm just gonna paste a link. Yeah, I've just done it, Edward. So you can read about it. You can read about the curriculum. In fact, right at the end of the workshop, we turn the thing around, and you need to make a presentation about an enterprise that you're interested in, putting all that you've learned into practice, right? So we just appreciate that this is a journey and this is worthwhile. And the folks at BR modestly compensated for this work, I like to think, but this is worthwhile work. And, something that Ted said that I think will forever stick with me when he said, I feel very well compensated for this work, just not financially. And hopefully he gets fairly compensated as well for all the work that is done. Yeah, but yeah.
Any questions we can answer in our remaining 10 minutes? There must be one question out there.
Maybe I'll go, Ted and Alex, just very quickly. So I understand that the loans are collateralized, right?
Correct.
So is it more, are you collateralizing the social enterprises' existing assets or assets that they will be acquiring from the loan, or both?
Normally it's the latter. So what we normally do is we provide capital so social enterprises can buy more equipment to do more of what they're already doing. And our theory, it's not a theory, I mean, the one of the credit reasons behind that is we are financing equipment, as Alex said, that should either make the social enterprise more money or save them money. And through that savings or through that increased income, they should be able to comfortably repay our loan. And so that's our thinking. Now, because we finance equipment that excludes a lot of very interesting social enterprises, we do very little in education, as an example, but we do a tremendous amount in agriculture because 70% of poor people are farmers. We work in renewable and affordable energy because I believe that if poor people don't have access to affordable energy, it's nearly impossible to permanently lift themselves out of poverty. We also focus on livelihoods, creating jobs for poor people, and waste, because I believe turning waste into something valuable is one of the biggest social enterprise opportunities out there. A very powerful way to make money and save the planet at the very same time.
And P reminded me about an important point. I think something that I struggled with before when I was trying to get people involved in impact investing was this whole idea when you invest into a fund, especially in Singapore, there's a requirement for you to be an accredited investor. And usually the minimum investment is quite a hefty sum. I mean, at the time it was 250,000 US dollars. And there aren't that many people who are able just to shell out that amount of money like that. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to try and democratize impact investing for people who have not quite as much, but just want to get involved in the work anyway. And so just for full disclosure, for to have your tuition fee refunded when you participate in a workshop. The minimum that we require is actually 20,000 Sing dollars. And any other questions?
Alex, the song again.
Yes,
that is an extremely powerful platform paradigm, that you make this accessible, and I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about what you guys are doing. One question: how big is the community that has participated with beneficial returns? And I imagine that would be quite an interesting group of people. Do you do anything with that investing community that has come your way?
Let me answer that question. We've had about a dozen participants. They are individuals, family foundations, and also religious orders, that faith-based communities that have participated. And we have not brought, we very seldom have brought our participants together, but it's a great idea. It's something that we ought to do more of, ideally in person, but in some ways maybe it'll be easier while we're still so accustomed to Zoom to do that, because I will say that our participants are an incredible bunch of people. A lot of them in the US, some of them in Southeast Asia, all of them motivated by a deeply held belief that we need to align our capital with our values, and that market-based solutions to poverty are some of the most powerful ways that we can really change the world. So you can go to our website and see the list of all of our investors. Our investors have invested in the fund as a whole, not in individual transactions. But as you'll learn, we have no secrets. Our borrowers are listed there, our investors are listed there. We don't list the names of our participants, but I think it's a great idea to introduce them, because they're a great bunch of people. And just to give you an idea about some of the opportunities that we see coming down the pike in the next few months, we're looking at a business operating in the coconut value chain. We're looking at solar energy. We're looking at clean water through chlorination on small scale water systems. We're looking at cacao opportunity. I'm sure that I've left out several, but we're always a rice company in Cambodia. So we're always have our fingers on the pulse of a few dozen social enterprises that are not yet ready for our capital, but we see them, or the opportunity hasn't yet presented itself. But we think that we will be very active in the coming months with new loans.
Thank you.
I was hoping to maybe share one final story, and I hesitate to share this story because it's got a faith sort of undercurrent to it, but it was an actual study that was done, and just allow me to share this, and I'll explain why I am. So this was a study. This guy here, Robert Woodbury, he published a research paper in the year 2012 titled "The Missionary Roots of Liberal Democracy." And basically in that study, he is trying to trace back what are some of the, amongst all the control variables that he was able to come up with, what is the strongest predicting factor that will lead to a stable democracy 100 years later, the time he did his study, 2012. So he found, because he had this data, he found that the greater the number of Christian missionaries in 1923 in the non-Western world, the higher the probability that by now that nation has achieved a stable democracy. Lower infant mortality, higher life expectancy in the year 2000 when he collected the data. And then More remarkably, he went on to explain why this was so. And he calls this the missionary effect, right? And he says it's far greater than many other control variables, including GDP, whether it was a British colony or a Dutch colony, in fact. And the reason this was so is because these people, they went around sponsoring mass education, and they did local printing. They set up these voluntary organizations at these hospitals. And at a time when the colonialists, they didn't quite agree with them, they would oppose the colonialists in order to advocate for the local communities. And so, you know, my personal dream is that in these communities that we work with, if such a study was taken 20 years, 30 years down the road, that not to be reductionistic about this whole idea, but hopefully in these communities, they will also account for higher literacy, lower poverty rates, higher health measures, because these enterprises have decided to go into these communities to connect them with value chains. And impact investors like yourselves have decided that this is a risk worth taking. And I'm going to risk some of my capital in order to seek the flourishing of others. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, any concluding remarks? We want to honor everybody's time, and we just really want to invite you. I think, you know, power comes by doing. So if you're not sure, actually on the link that Coco shared earlier, there is an introductory session that is later on this month, where we'll be going through some theories of change, and we'll invite some entrepreneurs to come on as well, just to help you understand some of this work. Remember, and if you have any ideas how we can lower the bar further to invite interested but yet passive impact investors to come on this journey, please share your ideas with us.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think to Ted's point about you won't get rich doing this, I think you will. I think we have to question what rich is. Singapore has one of the highest GDPs in the world per capita, but we spend $3.1 billion a year on stress-related illnesses for a nation of 5.7 million. So I think we have to ask ourselves what rich is and rethink that. And I think when you do impact investment, you will get rich, but not in that way, not in a GDP sort of way, but in a you get to witness human flourishing and, you know, and give your gifts, like Wen said, to others. And I think that's rich. That's wealth.
Thank you, Pei. That's beautiful. I completely agree.
I'm just going to put this, look for it, Don, The Missionary Roots of Liberal Democracy on Google. It's available for download as well. And TBN is organizing more of these breakout sessions for the rest of the week. It will be, Wayne, will you be able to speak more into that as well? It's always going to be 1 to 2 o'clock, right? And there's Impact Cafe also, and there's some healthcare sector. Do you want to speak to that a bit?
Sure.
I think Tiffany has just posted something here.
Okay, so we have a couple more breakout sessions that's happening in the week. So we have one happening Tuesday, same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Singapore time. It's a healthcare dialogue led by Dr. Goh Wei Leong. That's for tomorrow. And then we have one more on Thursday that's specifically talking about the social impact scene in Indonesia. And we have, last but not least, to us, the highlight is what we call the Impact Cafe, which will run from 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturday. This one is going to be quite crazy because we are going to have multiple tracks where different, I think 70 plus, almost 80 social impact, social enterprises that are actually doing a pitch or a quick introduction. It's really rapid fire. So it's going to be really intense, but that's something that our participants, our attendees always enjoy. So all the links to register for all these sessions are available in the chat that Tiff has actually posted. So we do hope to see you guys in these additional sessions in the week to come.
Great. So thank you. Yep, you have got the links. So we will end here. I'm really appreciative of your time.
Oh, there's a closing poll too.
Oh, that's a closing poll.
Really short.
Okay, I think it's been flashed already, Tiff.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Didn't see it.
Are you seeing the responses, Tiff?
No, I don't think I'm able to. Just on
I'm seeing the responses, but I guess as a co-host, I can't vote.
Yeah. So we do hope that everyone can just give the response to the closing poll. Just 2 questions, two very quick ones. If you don't see the poll, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do about it. But all we want to know is, are you interested in the upcoming workshop that Beneficial Returns is organizing? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, would you be more interested to learn more about the investor network that TBN Asia is putting together, so that you'll be in the know to be connected with other more like-minded people?
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks,
Thanks,
Carrie.
everyone.
And oh, Wen's gone, huh? Thank you so much.
All right, see
Thanks, Wayne.
see everyone in the week ahead. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Tiff.
Alex. And
See ya.
bye.
I'm on top of the world and now I'm living, and the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter, yeah. And